question for you, and we're looking at the depth chart. First of all, depth chart came out Monday when Mike Norvell talked to the media, first game week press conference of the 2022 season. Just look at the roster, obviously, no shock, surprise, surprise. Jordan Travis is our starting quarterback. Trayshawn Ward, Lawrence Toafili are our starting running backs. Here's my first question for you, Logan, and James, if you want to chime in. The first thing that got to me was the wide receiver position. Mycah Pittman has one of the starting spots at wide receiver, but then you look at the other two spots. It's Ontario Wilson or Deuce Spann, Malik McLean or Jordan Wilson. Should the optimist in me look at that and say, oh, okay, all these wide receivers are going to get a chance against Duquesne? Or should the pessimist come out and say, none of them has bona fide found themselves in the starting lineup at this point?
Go ahead, James.
I think anytime you see the 2 deep in the skill position area, you're looking at that's basically a co-starter at a good program. That's what I would look at it as. Mycah Pittman did come in and basically establish himself as a really, really good slot receiver. Probably took the position that Winston Wright was going to have more like that we were hoping he would do. But I think Deuce Spann has probably played better, especially in fall camp, than expected. I remember in the spring I was saying this kid's going to be a project. But Pokey is probably one of the more consistent wide receivers that they've had the whole time. So that or just means you're going to get a rotation in with them. And same thing with Malik McLean and Johnny Wilson. I mean, it's just two similar receivers, but that both give you something different. If we're not rotating these guys in and we're not too deep at those three roster spots, that would actually make me a little bit more afraid. So I'm looking to see big things from those guys in Duquesne to be able to get some good film out there, and then hopefully we'll know more so what we have against LSU after that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that wide receiver room, looking at the depth chart, nothing, at least from being at practice, surprises much. I do think Johnny Wilson on Saturday is going to be a starter. I don't think that you can keep him off the field much from what we've seen through all of fall camp, what we saw in spring. And now my question was, well, how's he going to look in game prep? And he's just doing the same thing he's been doing for months now. So I think Johnny Wilson has definitely been someone that going into that spring, guys, we were never thinking Johnny Wilson was going to come up and take away being a potential wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2. That was never the expectation whatsoever from any of us. We thought it was always Winston Wright. And sure enough, he's not healthy right now. So you had to have someone step up, and that ended up being 2 people, Johnny Wilson and Deuce Spann. You couldn't be any happier if you're a Florida State fan right now from what has happened in that wide receiver room. Yes, you've lost Wright, and he's still going through rehab, and you're hoping that you can have him later on in the season. But if you're a Florida State fan and if you wanted a revamped wide receiver room and you wanted the guys to step up, that's been done. Deuce Spann, it wasn't that way in the spring. Took him a little while, and then during this fall camp, he's emerged and broken out. So on Saturday, Akeem Dent told us yesterday, look for this wide receiver room to shock some people. And I think his comment was more surrounding the entire season than obviously just this Saturday against Duquesne. And we'll see. You can see the passing attack throughout camp has been nice with the wide receiver room. But I also don't take too much away from depth charts under Mike Norvell from what I've learned in this third season. He will move guys around no matter what on game days. So I know a lot of people are wondering where a few names are here and there. A lot of guys are going to be playing. Of course, yes, on Saturday, a lot of new guys, but still, whenever Florida State faces LSU, there's going to be a heavy rotation of guys, and there's going to be a lot of newcomers too.
What about on the offensive line? You look at a couple of guys, there's been injuries. Maurice Smith is out. Dylan Gibbons is starting left guard. Robert Scott, left tackle. I like the fact that Julian Armella listed at number 2 at the left tackle spot. Can we expect to see a decent amount of him against Duquesne?
I think you're going to see a decent amount of Julian Armella against Duquesne, and you're going to see a decent amount of him throughout the season, barring any kind of injury to any player there at that tackle position, primarily Robert Scott. If there ever were to be a case where he needs to sub in and come in for a few plays or a game, Armella has done enough to put himself into that second deep rotation. He's came in, he's looked great. He deserves that spot right there. And Kanaya Charlton too, since we're talking about some newcomers coming on that offensive line. Jason, Kanaya has shocked us too. I mean, we've had multiple surprises. We haven't really had enough time to talk about it because we're on week 0. We're already here, but there's been a lot of surprises in this camp. But Kanaya Charlton, he's going to get some playing time this upcoming season. Nobody was expecting that whatsoever. Once we got into spring, we kind of maybe saw signs early on in fall, but he's really stepped up and emerged. But some newcomers to keep an eye out on Saturday, getting some early rotation on that O-line will be Kanaya Charlton and Jordan Miller.